On Kunwu Mountain, fate did not unfold gently. Its shattered seals awakened ancient beasts and stirred grudges buried for 10,000 years. And tonight, beneath the suffocating weight of violet bamboo and forgotten formations, something far older than any cultivator had begun to watch. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. When Hua Tianqi finished listening to Old Man Fu's brief explanation, a flicker of astonishment surfaced in his eyes. He stroked his beard slowly and said, "So fellow Taoist Han hails from the heavenly south. It is rare indeed to encounter one of your landsmen here. Yet no matter the cause, you slew an elder of the Yin sifting sect and seized his ghost sifting banner. Such a matter cannot be so easily brushed aside." A murmur rippled through the gathered cultivators as though a wind had stirred the surface of still water. Curious gazes converged upon Han Li. To the cultivators of Great Jin, the heavenly south was but a distant and unremarkable frontier, scarcely worth mention. That a cultivator from such a remote land would appear here and provoke a formidable sect like the Yin sifting sect naturally ignited their intrigue. Han Li remained as composed as an ancient well untouched by storm. "I merely acted in self-defense," he said evenly. "Had their elder not chosen to stir trouble of his own accord, I would never have been entangled in this affair." The burly man among the vagrant cultivators could no longer contain himself. "Enough," he barked, anxiety sharpening his tone. "You three have been here for some time already. Surely you know where we stand." Han Li's gaze shifted subtly, calm and unwavering. "Naturally," he replied. "This is the legendary Kunwu Mountain." Kunwu Mountain. The newly arrived cultivators were momentarily stunned. Then, like thunder following lightning, elation erupted among them. Even old Devil Qian's eyes flickered with surprise. The sacred poison sect. Elders already aware of this revelation merely exchanged meaningful glances. Hua Tianqi rubbed his chin thoughtfully and turned his gaze toward the faint white silhouettes in the distance. "It would seem others arrived before us. Their numbers and strength remain unknown. Yet to break open such a grand seal, they must be formidable indeed. Brother Qian, whatever grievances lie between you and fellow Taoist, Han, this is hardly the place to settle them. Would it not be wiser for us to join forces and drive out those who came before us? Once Kunwu Mountain's treasures are secured, we may divide them fairly. Thereafter, you may resolve your enmity as you see fit. Join forces." Old Devil Qian fell silent, his expression dark as he weighed the proposal. Master Scatterwind and his four companions felt their hearts stir. Through silent voice transmissions, they began deliberating in secrecy. Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi could only sigh inwardly. Though confident in their combined strength against Old Devil Qian, the current circumstances bound their hands like invisible shackles. Han Li frowned almost imperceptibly. It seemed the method to dissolve the Soul Seal curse would have to wait for another opportunity. His eyes drifted toward the damaged seal. "Fellow Taoist Hua," he asked calmly, "how severe is the damage to the passage after that explosion? Can we still leave?" Hua Tianqi let out a faint sigh. "See for yourself. It may recover in time, but for now the passageway is sealed shut." After a brief hesitation, Han Li flew toward the luminous barrier and disappeared within its shimmering surface. Bai Yaoyi and Old Man Fu watched intently. Moments later, Han Li emerged once more, his expression somber. He shook his head slightly. "It is as he said. The passage is blocked, though it will eventually restore itself. For now, we can only press onward and explore deeper into the mountain." What followed was inevitable. Though Old Devil Qian was arrogant by nature, he was no fool. Kunwu Mountain was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to seize heaven-defying treasures. He would not squander it for the sake of temporary vengeance. Reluctantly, he suppressed his hostility toward Han Li for now. As for the proposed alliance, each party considered it carefully before ultimately consenting. Seeing consensus reached, Hua Tianqi declared loudly, "United we can rival even cultivators from the 10 great sects. We must move swiftly, lest the others seize the treasures first." With that he ascended the ancient stone steps. Old Devil Chien let out a cold snort. His 5 devils merged into a single swirling mass of ghostly qi and followed behind. Han Li and the others rose silently into the air and followed as well. Meanwhile, the members of the Ye clan stood before a vast white jade plaza. The plaza stretched over 500 meters, its surface carved from flawless jade that gleamed with a faint spiritual luster. Towering pillars, each over 30 meters tall, encircled the expanse. Upon them were exquisitely engraved spirit beasts, so lifelike that one could almost hear their roars echoing in the wind. Yet none of the Ye clan spared the pillars a glance. Their attention was fixed upon the far end of the plaza. There the stone steps emerged once more. Before them stood enormous jade tablets, inscribed with the names of various locations: Fortune Cloud Hall, Goldstone Pavilion, and others besides. The cultivators stood in contemplative silence, their gazes heavy with calculation. One cultivator finally spoke. There are 3 locations most likely to house the divine spirit treasures. At the center lies Kunwu Hall. Nearby stands the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Farthest of all is the devil-suppressing pagoda. The scholar and the eccentric remained silent, their thoughts hidden behind unreadable expressions. The cultivator continued. Kunwu Hall must be at the heart of the mountain. As for the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, its name alone suggests it once stored ancient treasures. It would not be strange to find them there. And the devil-suppressing pagoda? It must be where devils were imprisoned. Given the strange ceiling of this mountain, it is highly probable that the divine spirit treasures were used to suppress those devils. They may still be there. At last the scholar gave a low grunt. Well reasoned. I too believe the treasures lie among those 3. But our strength is limited. We cannot afford to search every location. We must choose 2. Which 2? The eccentric asked. After a pause, the scholar replied, the Spirit Treasure Pavilion and the devil-suppressing pagoda. The eccentric frowned slightly. Those 2, I would think Kunwu Hall a more likely candidate than the pagoda. The scholar chuckled softly. Even if we fail to obtain the divine spirit treasures, the Spirit Treasure Pavilion should still yield considerable gains. Kunwu Hall is too obvious. It would surely be riddled with traps and restrictions. Moreover, since the mountain was sealed, the treasures would serve little purpose enshrined at Kunwu Hall. Far more likely, they are suppressing some unspeakable demon within the devil-suppressing pagoda. The eccentric stroked his chin. Your reasoning has merit. Still, Kunwu Hall is the mountain's core. It would be unwise to ignore it entirely. The scholar smiled wryly. I understand. But our numbers are limited. Splitting into 2 groups is already perilous, let alone 3. The others began debating in earnest. Opinions divided and no consensus emerged. At length the eccentric's eyes flashed with a peculiar gleam. There are 9 of us. Let us divide into 3 groups of 3. 1 group to the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, 1 to the devil-suppressing pagoda. The final member, an elder adept in movement techniques, shall proceed alone to Kunwu Hall. If danger arises, he will retreat and inform us. Once either of our groups completes its task, we can converge on Kunwu Hall. The scholar hesitated briefly before nodding. Very well. But traveling alone invites danger from the lion hawk and the silver-winged night fiend alike. He must carry the overflowing sky bracelet. With that treasure, he should be able to preserve his life even in dire straits, the eccentric agreed. They swiftly divided their ranks. The disguised elder devil followed the eccentric toward the devil-suppressing pagoda, while the square-faced middle-aged cultivator was chosen to investigate Kunwu Hall, unsurprising, as his cultivation ranked 3rd among them. After a brief hesitation, the scholar handed him a bone-white bracelet. Each activation of the overflowing sky bracelet consumes your blood essence. Do not invoke it lightly. I understand, the square-faced cultivator replied solemnly as he accepted the treasure. The eccentric spoke calmly. The devil-suppressing pagoda is said to restrain vicious ghosts, demons, and devils. Whether any remain I cannot say, but that is where I shall go. The scholar chuckled. It seems our thoughts align. I too was drawn to the pagoda. But since seventh uncle has chosen it, I will not contest. I shall lead the others to the spirit treasure pavilion. And so beneath the silent jade pillars and the watchful gaze of ancient inscriptions, the Ye clan split their forces, each step forward a gamble against fate itself. The large-headed eccentric wasted no time. With a flick of his sleeve, he led his party of 3 disguised elder devil included toward the ascending steps that wound up to the devil. Suppressing Pagoda, the square-faced, middle-aged cultivator offered the scholar a solemn salute. After fastening the bone-white, overflowing sky bracelet around his wrist, his figure blurred like a streak of wind. In the next instant, he shot up the central stone steps, racing toward Kunwu Hall. The scholar did not move immediately. Instead, he stood rooted in place, hands clasped behind his back, and watched as both figures vanished into the shifting white mist that coiled about the mountainside like a living thing. Only when their auras had completely faded did he turn his gaze to an elderly man standing respectfully beside him. "Esteemed nephew Feng," he asked in a low voice, "do we have any formation tools remaining?" The old man bowed slightly. "As per your instructions, I have deployed a spell formation at every restriction we broke through. The only one left is the 7-star Myrtle formation, the one we purchased at the cost of tens of thousands of spirit stones." The scholar's eyes flickered faintly. "Place it here, and release the 2 vampiric bats and the swarm of tiger wasps into it." "Yes." Without hesitation, the old man slapped his storage pouch. A cluster of purple formation flags flew into his hand, glinting with spiritual light. He strode to the edge of the Jade Plaza and began setting them down with practiced precision. Meanwhile, the scholar turned his gaze downward toward the winding paths and drifting clouds below Kunwu Mountain. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly, as though troubled by thoughts too deep to reveal. 2 hours later, once all preparations were complete, they too entered the mountain's inner depths. Far below, Hanli's group had finally reached the Myriad Cultivator Gate. A profound illusion had once cloaked the archway, an intricate deception laid by the Ye clan. Against ordinary core formation cultivators, it would have been sufficient to confine them for days. Yet before a gathering of nascent soul experts, such trickery crumbled like frost beneath the rising sun. When the massive ornate archway of the Myriad Cultivator Gate revealed itself in full clarity, any lingering doubts vanished. Excitement surged through the party like wildfire. Without further delay, the loosely allied cultivators surged upward along the mountain path. Before long, they encountered the additional restrictions the Ye clan had left behind. Far from deterring them, these obstacles only sharpened their determination. Yet it was evident that each successive formation grew increasingly formidable. Though every cultivator present possessed immense power, they were forced to rely on brute force to shatter the restrictions one by one. The process consumed both time and spiritual power, slowing their advance. An entire day passed before they finally arrived at the vast stone hall filled with puppets. Hua Tianqi surveyed the looming structure with grave eyes. "Fellow Taoists, proceed with caution. Should there be restrictions within, we may face considerable trouble. Those who came before us must be exceedingly wealthy to deploy so many formation arrays. They are likely from one of the 10 great clans, or a force of equal standing." Old Devil Qian gave a cold snort. None of the 10 possessed the means to lay down restrictions of such caliber, especially the absolute ice-fire formation. "I grow ever more curious about the identity of those ahead of us." Hua Tianqi spoke confidently. "Regardless, they have already shattered Kunwu Mountain's original restrictions. Even if they placed interim blockades behind them, we shall soon overtake them." "I certainly hope so," Old Devil Qian replied indifferently. With that, the group entered the great stone hall. Inside, fragments of shattered stone puppets littered the floor like fallen warriors after a battlefield massacre. The cultivators instinctively slowed gazes, sweeping the debris. Hua Tianqi extended his spiritual sense throughout the hall. After a moment, he spoke with faint surprise. "There are no fluctuations of any restriction." How unexpected, they left none behind. Old Man Fu chuckled lightly. Most likely they exhausted their supply of formation tools. The burly, vagrant cultivator scanned the surroundings, brow furrowed. I have never heard of stone puppets such as these. They are not puppets, a calm voice replied. It was Han Li. He crouched among the rubble, sifting through shattered stone fragments with quiet focus. They are stone spirits, he explained evenly. An ancient secret technique. Demon beast souls were forcefully fused into statues. It was common in antiquity, though for unknown reasons the method was later lost. Hua Tianqi cast him an appraising glance. Fellow Taoist Han is knowledgeable in such ancient arts. I have merely dabbled in puppet refinement techniques, Han Li replied. A pity these are so badly damaged. Otherwise I might have gleaned something of value. He tossed aside a fragment of stone. It rolled across the floor with a hollow echo. His probing revealed the material to be ordinary stone, albeit refined through peculiar means. Strange formation markings were carved across their surfaces, though most were fragmented beyond recognition. If fellow Taoist Han desires an intact specimen, a genial voice spoke up. Perhaps you should search the collapsed corridors. It is possible a few survived. Han Li looked up. The speaker was a middle-aged man with an honest face and mild demeanor, Master Scatterwind. Unfamiliar with the man's infamous reputation in Great Jinhan, Li merely smiled politely, about to respond, when old devil Qian suddenly roared, "Evil creature! You court death!" His Cinque devils raised their arms in unison, releasing beams of ashen-grey light toward what seemed to be empty space. A violent series of explosions erupted. Purple radiance flared into view, revealing a four-winged hawk with the head of a lion, its eyes blazing with savage fury. The lion hawk. It had arrived silently, unnoticed, even by nascent soul experts intending to ambush old devil Qian's devils. Its previously severed talon had fully regenerated, gleaming with renewed strength. Having learned from past humiliation, the beast did not linger. The instant it was exposed, its four wings unfurled. In a swirl of azure mist, it shot out of the hall in the blink of an eye. The cultivators, startled by its sudden appearance, hesitated for but a fraction of a breath, yet that moment was enough. A lion hawk. Hua Tianqi gasped, face paling. Such a monster lurks here. Had he encountered it alone, he might well have perished. Old Man Fu and Bai Yaoyi exchanged a silent glance of alarm. They alone knew that an even more dreadful existence, the silver-winged night fiend, remained hidden somewhere within the mountain. Yet for their own reasons, they held their tongues. The others felt their scalps tingle. An ancient bird capable of matching late nascent soul cultivators was not something to provoke lightly. Han Li quietly abandoned his earlier thought of investigating the corridors. If the silver-winged night fiend also roamed these halls, it would be far safer to move as one. After fleeing the hall, the lion hawk circled down the mountainside. An hour later, it descended beside a colossal ancient tree and released a shrill, piercing screech that split the air. "I heard you. Stop that infernal noise." A cracked gong-like voice rang out from within the tree trunk. A flash of green light shimmered, revealing a 3-meter-wide hollow in the trunk. From within stepped a black-clothed woman. Her figure was broad and imposing. Her skin was a dusky tan. Her jet-black hair was twisted into a bun atop her head. Two several-inch-long white horns jutted outward from her hair, and her face was grotesque beyond description. Crimson light glowed faintly within her eyes, as though irritation itself had taken form. Hands planted on her hips, she ground her teeth. "You want revenge? And why should I trouble myself? You were careless and let half your talon be severed. That is your own humiliation. Besides, the descendants of the three masters trapped us here to guard this mountain in their stead. I have no intention of fulfilling their wishes." Another voice, deep and measured, drifted through the air. "If we do nothing, they will enter Kunwu Hall and retrieve the 4 spirit medallions. Should that happen, we may once again fall under their control." Azure light flashed. The silver-winged night fiend appeared, its wings faintly shimmering like blades forged from moonlight. The horned woman snorted dismissively. "That is only if they succeed. Do you think the restrictions are mere decoration? The Great North Essence lights alone are insurmountable. Any who attempt to enter Kunwu Hall are courting death. The silver-winged night fiend's tone remained calm yet firm. That may not be so, fellow Taoist guy. The Great North Essence lights are indeed formidable, but among them are late nascent soul cultivators. One may possess a treasure capable of controlling such power. And tell me, do you not wish to seize those control medallions for yourself? It paused briefly, then continued, voice lowering. Though we have broken free from the spirit prison formation, we still cannot step beyond the bounds of this mountain. The wind stirred through the trees, and for a moment, even the horned woman fell silent. When the horned woman heard mention of the restriction medallions, her expression shifted abruptly. The faint ease in her demeanor vanished, replaced by a harsh edge. The spiritual chi here is flawless, she said coldly. Why would I ever wish to leave? I know not what has become of the outside world, but I doubt I would find a place more suitable for cultivation than this. I will remain here until the day I ascend to the next realm. The silver-winged night fiend frowned slightly. Fellow Taoist Gai, the seal has already shattered. Peace will not endure. Sooner or later, this mountain will become a battlefield. Why suffer what is inevitable? We share a certain bond. Let us face this crisis together. The horned woman's gaze softened just a fraction. We do share some connection, she admitted. You were once the refined corpse of a human cultivator. As for the lion hawk and myself, we were nurtured by those ancient cultivators before they sealed us within the spirit prison formations. The night fiend's wings gave a faint ripple. Kunwu Hall is warded with restrictions specifically meant to repel us. Ordinarily, we cannot approach it. But now humans are clearing the path. If we follow quietly in their wake, then when the time comes, we can seize our restriction medallions and dispose of them in one stroke. The horned woman's heart stirred at those words. Yet outwardly, she only snorted, voice icy. You speak as though it were effortless. There are many among them, several at the late nascent soul stage. You yourself mentioned one particularly troublesome cultivator wielding a divine spirit treasure. If we miscalculate, we may deliver our own heads onto the executioner's platter. I have no desire to be imprisoned again. Her crimson eyes flashed. Would it not be wiser to ignore the medallions altogether? We could retreat into the deepest spirit veins of the mountain and sleep for 1,000 years. Even if they seized the medallions, they would not be able to disturb us. The night fiend's patience thinned. His voice darkened. Do not forget, fellow Taoist Gui, I am proficient in earth movement techniques. The horned woman narrowed her eyes. What are you implying? It is simple, he replied indifferently. If humans seize my restriction medallion, they may command me to reveal everything I know. Do you believe they would overlook the demon core of a grade 10 vast cliff tortoise? The implication was unmistakable. The horned woman's face darkened with irritation. Fine, then shall we both hide together? I cannot relinquish such an opportunity, the night fiend said bluntly. I will not remain bound to this cursed mountain forever. Without yin moon essence, I can never evolve into a gold-clad lunar corpse. At those words, the horned woman suddenly leapt a meter into the air robes, snapping around her as she roared. Are you threatening me? The night fiend merely beat his silver wings once and gave a cold chuckle. No threat, merely a reminder. You owe me a favor, fellow Taoist Guy. Have you forgotten? When the ancient cultivators placed the berserker curse upon us to seal our intelligence, had I not split the clear void? Pill with you, you would have descended into mindless bloodlust long ago. You would not stand here in human form. The mention of the berserker curse drained much of her arrogance. Of course I remember, she muttered. Silence fell between them. After a long moment, she exhaled slowly. We must also consider the fourth guardian. It should have been teleported here as well. We have seen no trace of it, nor do we know its form. If we could join forces with it, I would consider acting. The night fiend shook his head. I have searched thoroughly. I found neither the fourth spirit prison formation nor any demon or ghost matching its presence. Perhaps it was less fortunate than we. Without a clear void pill to suppress the curse, it likely succumbed to madness and perished. Even if it survived, we no longer have time to seek it. The horned woman's expression wavered. At last she sighed heavily and spoke with clarity. Very well. Since you invoked the clear void pill, I will aid you this once. But after we obtain our restriction medallions, we depart immediately. I will not linger upon this accursed mountain. I shall find a desolate land where I may cultivate in peace. That is sufficient, the night fiend replied with a faint smile. With freedom, the world itself becomes our cultivation ground. Privately, he felt satisfaction. Though only marginally stronger than himself, the vast cliff tortoise would be invaluable. Maintaining her composure, the horned woman continued. Before we act, we require a plan. They already know two of you exist. We must avoid falling into their traps. Naturally, the night fiend agreed without hesitation. The lion hawk lifted its head and gave a sharp caw. The three fearsome beings conferred quietly beneath the massive ancient tree. By the time it took to finish a meal, their discussion concluded. With a rush of wind, they soared into the sky, streaking toward the stone steps. In the blink of an eye, they vanished, leaving only swirling air in their wake. Yet moments later, a nearby towering tree trembled faintly. Its massive trunk began to shrink. A soft green radiance formed a barrier around it, and protrusions rippled across its bark until two enormous verdant eyes emerged. They were glassy and luminous, devoid of emotion. Silently, they stared in the direction where the three had disappeared. It was inconceivable. Another existence had concealed itself within earshot of three high-grade beings undetected. After watching the sky for a long time, green light flashed once more. With a whisper of wind, the tree sank into the earth and vanished. After spotting the lion hawk, Han Li's group promptly exited the stone hall. The moment they stepped outside, they felt a powerful restriction suppressing flight. Spiritual pressure pressed downward, forcing them all to descend to the ground. Rather than disappointment, excitement flickered in their eyes. Such restrictions signified they had reached a core region of Kunwu Mountain. "What is that?" Bai Yaoyi exclaimed, staring toward the distant stone stairway in stunned disbelief. The others followed her gaze. Before them stretched winding stone steps that disappeared into a vast, verdant forest. The forest was composed entirely of towering purple bamboo stalks, dense and endless, stretching as far as the eye could see. It completely concealed the white jade plaza beyond. At its base, faint purple qi swirled like living mist. The spiritual pressure emanating from it was astonishing, so heavy that even nascent soul cultivators felt their hearts tremble. Hua Tianqi examined the scene gravely. This restriction far surpasses the absolute icefire formation. It must be the final barrier. Once we break through, we can pursue them without delay. In that case, what are we waiting for? Old Devil Qian burst into wild laughter. The Qingque devils flared with grey radiance and shot straight into the purple forest. Hua Tianqi hesitated briefly, then followed, leading the sacred poison sect elders into the bamboo sea. "Let us move as well." "Ye brother Han, what troubles you?" Old man Fu suddenly asked, noticing Han Li's unsightly expression. Han Li drew in a slow breath. His face smoothed over once more. "It is nothing. Let us proceed." With a blur, he leapt 10 meters into the air and landed within the forest. Old man Fu stroked his beard thoughtfully. Though doubt lingered, he suppressed it and followed. Unbeknownst to him, within Han Li's body, the bamboo cloud-swarm swords trembled violently. Their reaction could mean only one thing. The elder devil was present upon this mountain. Han Li could not help but grimace. Could the elder devil truly be among the cultivators ahead? How had it ascended Kunwu Mountain? And what sinister purpose drove it here? Thoughts churned violently within him. With the tri-flame fan and his late nascent soul puppet, he did not fear direct confrontation. Yet the coincidence was far too unsettling. His previous encounters with the elder devil remained vivid in memory, and an ominous premonition pressed upon his heart. At that moment, old Devil Chen stood before the forest's edge and unleashed torrents of grey glacial qi from the hands of the Qingque devils. The bamboo forest responded. A deep humming resonated through the air as 7 pillars of purple light erupted skyward from scattered points within the forest. The purple chi surged like a living ocean, colliding with the grey glacial energy in violent waves like 2 primordial beasts locked in savage combat. Moments later, the sacred poison sect elders and the vagrant cultivators arrived and joined the assault. Brilliant spiritual light exploded across the forest canopy, illuminating the sky in clashing hues. Han Li silently opened his mouth. Several flying swords shot forth in streaks of green light, joining the relentless barrage. Yet even as he attacked, part of his mind remained elsewhere, calculating, wary and waiting. For he knew the true storm had yet to begin.